now all of a sudden, this is my first time dealing with being in the spotlight under all this scrutiny, all the people in my life that I thought were my friends, because again, they were there for the wrong reasons, right? Because that, again, it was my fault. I was attracting these people to look how successful I am. I'm on TV. I'm this person. You should be friends with me. Everybody left my corner. I suddenly found myself all by myself. Even, going back to being the black sheep, right? Now everybody in the Indian community is like, do you see what happens if you don't follow the path?
Oh, so you're that guy
I'm
now.
that guy. I'm the guy who's the example of how you can throw your life away, right? If you don't
Is
follow.
there any I told you so's?
Oh, my gosh.
Dhar Mann, welcome to the neighborhood,
Dhar
bro.
Mann?
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I feel like it's about time. How long have I known you? Like 7 years? I've been waiting for this invite the whole time. You know that one person that you invite everywhere to go with you, but then they never give you the invite in return, and then you're looking at their like Instagram stories.
We gotta talk about that
He's always
person.
at the coolest places. Why didn't I get that invite?
Dhar Mann, you know you don't want to. You don't want to. Let me tell you. For one, you don't want to go with me. I want to go everywhere you're at. It's a total difference. But now I've been wanting to do this for a while. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that when it comes to Dhar, man, of course I knew the content, but now Dhar, you're like a friend first. You know what I'm saying? And I enjoy the content. I enjoy the conversations that we have. But some of our best conversations is off mic.
Yeah.
So we had to do this one on.
No, I love it, man.
Yeah, man.
It's so much of a different experience once you've actually really built a relationship. And especially in this industry, you meet a lot of people, you connect, but it doesn't really turn into a relationship afterwards. I'm glad that this started in the opposite way.
And then once with us, once because it wasn't like the full restraining order. Once the temporary restraining order, you took that off of me, and you realized I was just in front of your house because I enjoyed you, and I wasn't there to hurt you, then we became friends. Dhar, now, all jokes aside, bro, people know Dhar Mann Studios. They know the Dhar Mann Empire. We're so familiar with the content that you put out, and it continues to be. Every time I look up Dhar Mann, it's another great thing that you worked for that pushes your brand even more so. What was Dhar Mann before the Dhar Mann we know? The Dhar Mann Studios, because we've had conversations of what's real life before we see the so-called glamour, the glitz, and the subs and all that.
Yeah, Dhar Mann growing up was just a lost kid trying to find himself, to be honest. And, I never set out to build a business. I never set out to build a studio. I started out with just a mission to try to help people, avoid some of the same mistakes that I made in my life. And if I was to say, what is my superpower? Like, what am I an expert at? I'm an expert at failing. Yeah. Because I've just failed more than the average person.
That's what I tell people. I say, man, I probably failed more than you because I've thrown more things up against the wall and I've tried things. Yeah. Like people listen to my radio show, they say, oh man, I love phone taps and I love this. But I'm like, man, all the things that didn't make it is it laps the things that you think that were so-called genius.
And for context, I got the privilege of getting to know Big's story because we actually told his story on our channel. So for those of you that aren't familiar with my content, we tell inspirational scripted stories. And Big's got one of the most inspiring stories. I'm sure you've shared it with your audience, but I know about your journey on the radio when you had your first opportunities. People would be making fun of you. They'd be leaving you notes. They'd be criticizing your weight, telling you you'd never make it in radio. You could have listened to those doubters and naysayers, right? But there was something in you that kept pushing forward. And if you hadn't, then you never would have been here today. Yeah. And that's really the difference between anyone that's successful and anyone that isn't, is that everyone encounters hardship. Everyone encounters criticism and failure. The difference is that people that ultimately find success just find a way to keep pushing past those failures.
How did you grow up, Dhar? Like, do you have brothers, sisters, mom, dad? Like, what was the household like for Dhar Mann growing up?
How I grew up, So I have one older brother. He's 4.5 years older than me. My parents came from India, the classic. I used to say $7 in their pocket. Then my mom got mad at me. She was like, no, we actually had 8.
Okay, yeah. Don't devalue us. So $8 in your parents' pockets when they come here to America.
They didn't speak English, so it's very hard to get a job because, as you can imagine, this was 50 years ago.
Were you born in the States?
I was born in Oakland.
So they came.
Yeah.
And then they had Dhar Mann in Oakland. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Exactly. I wasn't known by my full name at that time. People just called me Dhar.
Dhar? Yeah. What up, Dhar?
Like, once you, I guess, make it in life, people call you like your full name. But yeah, so I remember growing up in a small little apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment that we shared with another family. So there was about 8 of us. We didn't even have like enough plates, forks, and spoons for us all to eat at the same time. We'd have to wait, for one person to eat, and then they'd go and like wash the plate off. Then the next person would eat. My mom was working at the bank. My dad would work at the bank too. And then all day he'd be there, and then all night he'd be driving a taxi cab. Pretty much like grew up sleeping on a couch. I was the only Indian in my city. So
in the city?
In the whole city.
How some people say in the school or on the block.
Right.
In the city.
Well, I had my brother.
Right. Yeah. The struggle was real. Yeah, but how do you identify with that? When how sometimes you look and there's a solace and a comfort in seeing someone like you. And now when we look at the empire that you've built, there's someone that can say, oh, I see Dhar, I see this. So, but you didn't have that to look at. You had hardworking parents.
Yeah.
And my role model, Dhar, was inside of my house. My role model was my mom. But what is that like being the only you pretty much in the city?
Yeah, sorry. When you say your mom, it just gives me the chills because I know your relationship with your mom.
Yes, sir.
And, I wish to have the same relationship with my kids. It's really touching, man, how much you share and honor your mom throughout your whole story.
Idol son first, bro.
I love that. So for me, I'm at a point in my life where I now can look back and I see everything as a blessing, right? It's either a lesson or a blessing.
Right.
And so when I was in high school, again, this was quite some time ago, this was 25 years ago. At that time, the school was a lot more racially segregated. So all the different ethnicities would sit with each other. And so since there was no other Indian, I never really found a group that I could actually sit with and felt comfortable with during lunch. Whenever I sat down, I'd see people kind of roll their eyes or like scoot over a little bit, right? But what that allowed me to do was ultimately find ways of connecting with every type of ethnicity. Right? Because I had to try to fit in. And so now looking back, it was actually a great thing because I got to learn about so many different cultures.
Yes, sir.
But at that time in high school, it was really intimidating. So I remember I spent like a lot of my lunches just sitting in the bathroom stall eating by myself because I didn't want anyone to see me.
But that's high school. So was that lonely feeling elementary, middle school, high school as well?
Elementary school, I wore a turban.
Right. Oh.
And so you can imagine how different I felt because of the way that I looked. And, for the video, we're happy to share a photo with you that you could share with your audience. So this is at a time where The Simpsons was sort of at its peak, and the only association with Indian culture,
oh my gosh, yes.
was Apu from 7-Eleven. My dad drove a taxi cab. And so it's the complete stereotype, right? My dad's driving a taxi who also wears a turban. I'm getting dropped off at school with a turban.
Taxi? Oh, you're not getting dropped off in a taxi?
Yeah, in a taxi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, at a certain point in the beginning, I would say, drop me off at front because I wasn't cognizant of like social cues and such. And I was just really into sports, really into, my own life. And I didn't really realize how different I was early on in elementary.
Is that you right there, Dar?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Is that you?
That is me. Yeah.
Go ahead, little guy.
Picture.
Who would have known?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that you're not really aware that you're different until some sort of experience happens, and then you never can unsee it again. And so, yeah, you can imagine the types of racial slurs and the things that I would get called all the time. My brother was a little bit older, and as kids got into like middle school, high school, they become a little bit meaner. So I didn't really experience the physical like violence and abuse, but my brother did. And so, he'd come home often like bloodied and beat up, and I wouldn't really understand. I was confused. I was angry. Like, Why? Just because somebody looks a little bit different, people are going to beat that person up or make fun of him. Naturally, I was always trying to be protective of him. So I'd have this like anger inside. And I still remember one day it got so bad that, my parents are religious, and the whole reason that Indians, a certain part of India, because India is a very big country, as you can imagine. So the area of India, for the folks that wear turbans, it's typically in Punjab, which is like the northwestern part of India. And those are folks that follow the Sikh tradition.
Yes, sir.
So it's actually the 5th largest religion in the world, but not a lot of people know about Sikhism. You're very well traveled and educated, so I'm sure you've probably heard of it. So we were just trying to honor our religion, and especially for those that came from India, it was very sacred to have a turban, and you had long hair under the turban, which is why you wore it. And so one day it got so bad that my mom and dad would have discussions about my brother and I cutting our hair, but my dad was dead set against it. But my mom saw how bad it was getting for us. So she told her brother, my uncle, one day after school, take us to the barber shop. And, I still remember walking into this barbershop for the very first time. I'd never gotten a haircut before. I didn't know what it was like to cut your hair. And so as I sat in the seat, I thought it was going to be extremely painful, like almost as if it's cutting off your arm or something, And so, within a flash, like it just took a second, snip, snip. And now I saw my hair fall on the floor. And even though that wasn't physically painful, what followed from there was actually quite emotionally painful, because now I never felt like I quite fit in with the Americans because I was too Indian, right? But at least I fit in with the Indians. And there weren't any Indians in my city, but when we would go to the temple, when we would go to like family events, like I was sort of seen as a way as someone who's following the path, right? Honoring the legacy, honoring the religion. And so now when I would try to go into those environments, I was certainly looked down upon as somebody who was not following the faith. And so it became very difficult. Like, from the moment I got home and my dad saw that our hair was cut, he couldn't believe it at first. I could tell how hard that was for him to experience. It's almost like, I know that you put your son, Jaden, through basketball. Were you a basketball player?
No.
Okay. Well, a lot of people raise their children wanting to be something or fulfilling some sort of legacy or vision, right? And it's like seeing your heart shatter that your parents' dream for you
Does
has
that
been
create
broken.
A problem with your mom and dad as well too? Because she took you to the barbershop, and there's a lot of love there, but you also view that your kids are hurting, and that's probably got to be extremely hard for your mom too. I always call those the enoughs. Like you had the enoughs of, am I American enough? Am I now Indian enough? Am I, so I can't imagine what that is for someone so young to bear.
Yeah.
And it's constant.
Right.
It's constant.
Yeah.
So when you go and you get the first haircut, you go back to school and that's not enough.
Well, it happened during the summer.
Okay.
And so I was actually switching schools at that time. So I was actually able to reinvent myself, even though I was in my head, I was still a kid with the turban. And so I felt a little bit outcasted, but now I was trying to learn how to sort of assimilate into normal American culture.
And is this new school because is it middle school to high school, or is it
elementary to middle?
Elementary to middle school.
Exactly.
Okay, so you get a chance to go to a new school and it feels a little different.
It feels a little bit different, but still I didn't develop those social skills early on where I really felt comfortable fitting in. So I was always trying to sort of overcompensate and trying to find ways to get people to like me. Like if you were to give your kid advice now, if they're like, Dad, I don't know how to get people to like me, what would you say?
Now, I'll just be like, don't worry about it.
Exactly. Right?
But yeah.
Exactly. But at that age, right, you're trying so hard and you don't know any other way. And my parents were always at work. They weren't really around and they didn't know either. I mean, their American culture was new to them. And so I didn't really have any mentors or people to give me advice like that. And so I would just overcompensate by trying to be somebody that I'm not in order to fit in. And I felt like that's been a lot of my life journey, just trying to find community and to be able to fit in.
When you finally, is there a process where you do fit in, or you just couldn't wait to get out of school?
I mean, I still struggle with that sometimes. I would say the time that I actually felt like I fit in was in high school, and that was when I got a car.
Right.
Because if you're in high school and you get a car, especially a little bit ahead of like other people your age, suddenly you're the cool kid, right? Because everyone just wants to ride in your car.
But did you know then that they were using, in a sense, using you, but you even ride it past like it's okay.
That's what I was going to get to, is like, because my parents were gone so much and, you know, I pretty much had to raise myself. The one thing that they would give me is a little bit of cash to go do something. Mm-hmm. So they say, hey, here's $20. We're not going to be around this weekend because we're working, right? So go entertain yourself, kind of a thing. And what I realized was that even though I had a hard time making friends, if I offered to buy somebody lunch, then suddenly they wanted to hang out with me, right? Or if I had a car and now they want to ride inside of my car, now I felt like I had friends. So I started associating, because my parents weren't around, they would give money to me in order to make up for their absence. Right. So I would be like, oh, money is love. And if I want a way to build friendship, if I want to build relationships, then I need to show people that, hey, I have access to things. And if you be my friend, then you can have access as well. And as you can imagine, that attracts the wrong kinds of people into your life. And it's really my fault, because I'm a magnet and I'm asking for that, right?
Yeah, but you're young and there's no, I mean, this is tuition into the school of experience. You look back at certain things now, but when you're young, it's like, man, you got to crash the car.
Exactly.
You know, and especially when you don't have someone that really next to you or in your life that'll say, hey, you know, they're using you, they're doing the conversations we would have with someone now.
Yeah.
You didn't have that.
Exactly. There was no open dialogue. And, you know, especially at the time my parents grew up, there was like no explanations as to why certain things happen or why we do things.
And then we didn't have this communication either.
Right.
You know, now there's more communication on how do you feel, how are you doing, and we open up dialogue now. Yeah. Back then, it wasn't a lot of opening up. It was like, bear with it, be quiet, men don't cry. Everything that was, you know, it's not masculine. Everything that was kind of pointing to the negative was kind of how we grew up.
Right.
Where you don't ask for help. You know, you're not really vulnerable. And now I see it now that thank God it's different.
Yeah.
And there's more places where you can have an outreach as well.
Right.
You know, and I think for a lot of people, Dhar, I think your videos, can you imagine if 8-year-old Dhar Mann, 12-year-old Dhar Mann could watch a Dhar Mann-like video then in their home?
Right.
What you're providing for so many people. Like, I've met you because my daughter watched your videos. I got people that don't know my 32 years in radio. They'll say, that's the guy from the Dhar Mann video. You know, and I am the guy from the Dhar Mann video. You know, I'm not going to sit there like, oh, you know, I worked at Power and now I'm at Real and I'm at iHeart and I do this. And at that moment, I exist because the outlet that you provide to so many other people. But before we get to Dhar Mann and Dhar Mann Studios and what we see, when is the first time you start creating content?
That doesn't happen until much later. You know, you think about most content creators and YouTubers, and you think of people that are like in their early 20s, right?
Even younger, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you know, since I'm in this space now, you know, when we go on like YouTube retreats or anything else, I was just on a call right before this to talk about a collaboration with another YouTuber. And we're talking about dates that we're going to shoot, the idea that we came up with. And I was like, oh, well, he's going to be in town on May 30th. I was like, oh, well, I'm having my birthday party on May 30th if you want to come. And he goes, May 30th is actually my birthday. I was like, no way. How old are you turning? He goes, 30. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm like, oh, that's not that far off from me. And then he goes, just kidding. I'm not that old. I'm 25.
Oh! Just when you was about to let him in even more. Like, oh, this is crazy. Yeah. That's when you're like, oh.
I know. I was like, you got me.
Got me, little bastard. Yeah. Hey, man, so between those gaps of us knowing you, what is what's your life between those gaps before the actual turning on the camera? Because what was the job? What was the school? How did you survive before we see the Dhar Mann and Dhar Mann studio?
Yeah, so, it's kind of continuing where I left off, that I was associating money with love, and I would sort of use that as a magnet to try to get people to like me. Mm-hmm. And so even in early relationships that I would get into, I would use sort of money as the lure, mm-hmm. right? To say, hey, I will take you to these nice places and you can ride in my car and I'll take you shopping. And no wonder that I would end up like attracting certain types of girls into my life that just saw what they could gain from me. Mm-hmm. And no shade to any of those girls, because again, I take full responsibility for all my actions. And you bring into your life whatever you project, mm-hmm. right? So that was sort of this course with like friendship, relationships. Since I realized that at that time that money was going to be my way to be desirable socially, I was like, I better figure out ways of making a lot of it. Oh, yeah. And so, I wasn't going to be able to rely on my $20 allowances that I was getting from my parents for a week for like a very long time. So when I got into college, even though I went to UC Davis, I was studying economics and political science. I always did well in school. I was close to a 4.0 GPA Jesus at that time.
You couldn't even add mine up to get that all my years.
Nowadays, it's crazy how competitive it is because 4.0 is almost looked down upon.
Yeah.
Like, my nephew's a 4.5 and struggling to get into schools. It's
crazy.
Dude,
I look at that, I'm like, I thought 4.0, when I was growing up, I was like, you can't get nothing better than that. Yeah, I'm now hearing like 4, and I'm like, what are we adding here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are we adding?
There's like 5.0s now, I think. Yeah. It's just crazy.
And not just the Mustangs. They're not cars. These are like grades now, GPAs. So you go, and that's the attraction. That's the lure. That's what you're throwing in, and whatever you're casting up, bringing up. It's like, it's not desirable.
So I'm going to school. Again, I'm like trying to find my people, community. I went to UC Davis where they actually have a pretty big Indian community. So I learned how to dance. There's like an Indian style of dance called Bhangra. Mm-hmm. And so I joined the school dance team. I became pretty good at that. And so that kind of became like my way into the Indian community. But I was still always looking for a way of how can I sort of differentiate myself, become more desirable by making more money. Mm-hmm. And so there happened to be, this is like pre-Craigslist, this was 2002. And so I end up my sophomore year in college getting this apartment that I couldn't afford. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, so I needed to get a roommate. And at that time, it was very hard to get a roommate because you couldn't just post it online. And so what I realized was that there was these bulletin boards all around campus in which you could put up listings for things. So I decided, hey, this will be a great place to look for a roommate. So I make a flyer. I have to figure out how to make a flyer because it's not like Canva exists at that time.
Going in the app, just moving things over.
It's really hard. Like imagine, what was that, like Paint? Is that what it was called?
That's how I used to tell Ani. I used to man, we used to have to and it's probably before you too, we used to have to use like these stamps for the words.
Right.
And then you make one master flyer, then you print off of that one master flyer. So
exactly.
Did you have the tearaway numbers?
Exactly. Well, so I'm about to get to that in a second. So I had to design a flyer, which was very complicated. Then I had to figure out a way to print flyers. So I had to go to a print shop because there was like 50 different bulletin boards around campus. I wanted to hit them all. And so I wake up super early. I got my flyers. I hit up all the different campuses and put my, little flyers up looking for a roommate. I come back home, shower, get ready for school. And by the time I actually get to campus, I'm like, man, I'm going to be getting hit up left and right. I'm going to be able to fill up this roommate spot in like no time. I went and looked at the bulletin flyers. Half my flyers are pasted over by someone else's hat.
All this hard work.
Yeah, all this hard work. And the other half are like on the floor because they fell off. And I was like, man, this is actually really hard. Like, how do you reach other students? Boom, business idea. So that's when I came up with the idea of Davis Marketing Services. And so my whole concept was I was going to help businesses reach students. Yes, because I was going to UC Davis.
So that's UC Davis already.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, like my name is Dhar Mann. So it has like all the letters of my name in it. That wasn't on purpose. But I started realizing that I could help businesses try to connect with students by helping them advertise on bulletin boards. So I didn't quite know how I was going to scale this up, but what I decided to do was I learned graphic design myself. And then I hired a salesperson who was commission-based that would just go around to like apartment buildings and different types of services that were trying to market to students. He would get a commission. His name was Anthony. I still remember. He had a commission for any deal that he would close. I worked out a deal with a local print shop where I would be able to, charge businesses like 10 cents a copy, but I would be able to actually buy them for 5 cents. So I had a 5-cent margin at that. And then I worked out with the local sorority on how they would, on how we could distribute these flyers all over campus, because they would have girls that were pledging the sorority go in the morning and post all these, and I would pay the sorority. And so within like a pretty short amount of time from that experience, I had a sales team, I had a manufacturing team, I had a distribution team, and for me, I was a design team. So, I probably had like a 5-person to 10-person like employee business by the time I was like 19 years old. And I was making pretty decent money because, for an apartment building to be able to get students to live at their housing, you can imagine they're willing to pay like a decent amount for that. And so I probably at 19 years old was starting to make, I don't know, $10,000 to $15,000 a month at that time, shoot, which was real money, especially back then.
Yeah.
So that kind of became my first real business.
And that's
that I started,
all on UC Davis or surrounding areas? Is all on campus?
It was all there, UC Davis. And then I would have all these different add-ons, right? So if you want the regular flyer, that's one fee. But if you want the little strips at the bottom that we would cut and you could tear away, you got to add a couple of bucks for that. I came up with like really fancy ideas where I would actually have glow sticks, crack them, I would paste them behind the flyer, and I would call those glow-in-the-dark flyers. I would then have a premium for that. Then I realized that we could have sidewalk chalk services, so we could write messages on, walkways. We could have little mini flyers behind lecture hall seats. Like this became a pretty elaborate.
But how no one else thought to jump into the same thing or become a sloppy carbon copy, or did you have that on lock?
I didn't do it long enough. Nowadays, I think we're used to every great idea gets copied right away. At that time, the world just moved a lot slower.
And you were the company. Your company was the one. This is who we go to get this.
Exactly. I can't say it reached like some sort of massive scale like that, because I ended up pivoting into another business that became a bigger opportunity for me pretty quickly. So once, do you want me to explain that?
Yeah, please
okay,
do.
So at this time, this is now 2004, 2005. I'm still, a full-time student. Double major, taking on a lot of units, running this marketing company. But at this time, if you recall, this is right before the real estate bubble hit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there were people that were making a lot of money in the real estate industry because valuations were just climbing, interest rates were dropping. And there was
what year is this?
It's like 2005, 2006.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So my brother had become a real estate broker. And I saw how well he was doing. And so he's like, hey, the biggest challenge for any sort of real estate business is always lead gen. And I was like, well, I could help, right? Because I could help market your services like on campus. And so I started marketing real estate. And at that point in time, I realized that you could actually make a lot more in real estate versus marketing. So I decided to open up an actual call center. This is back when, this is before iPhones would like filter out calls and tell you that.
Yeah, no call. No, like that's before calls got through.
Exactly.
There was no blocks. There were, because you answered the phone. Hello? And by that time, we had you.
Right.
Yeah, that's how phone taps was flourished. My phone pranks. Now no one answers the phone. Now everything is scam likely.
Big Boy Radio.
Scam likely. So you were able to go straight and do call outs.
Exactly.
Lead
so
sheets.
I don't know what the rules are now, but at that time you can go to title companies and you could get, since loans are public information, you could actually get leads from them for people that had high interest rate loans. And so what I would do is I use my marketing company to basically recruit students who wanted to actually have a career in real estate. I became a real estate broker myself. I opened up an office. I still remember at 19 years old, I went to this property manager and I was like, hey, I want to rent an office. And he's like, okay, well, where are your parents to co-sign? And I was like, I don't have my parents to co-sign, but I'm telling you, sir, I will be the most successful tenant. I will always pay my rent in time. I will never miss a beat. And I had just so much conviction in my eyes that he decided to take a chance on me. And so he rented me one office. By the end of that year, we ended up taking almost half the entire building. So we had 3 different offices within that space. We had the whole top floor. And it was all students. And so, students would come in, we'd give them a stack of leads. They would call people and say, hey, we noticed that you have an 8% interest rate on your mortgage. Would you be interested in refinancing? You could save this money. You could cash out. And there was, we were quite successful at that. We got a lot of people that would fill out loan applications. And then I would go out and I would meet with people one-on-one. And I would say, hey, here's how much we could save you. And so, yeah, that I would say became my first business of means. Like I still remember the very first time it got so bad at a certain point in time where, because in the beginning, I didn't realize how long the sales cycle is for real estate. And so because I put all my eggs in this one basket, I thought that we could
things to come back.
Exactly. I thought you fill out the loan application, you got paid. I didn't realize that it's going to take the bank like many months to fund. And so it actually got so bad because I was paying all these students. I had all these offices. It got to the point where I had to sell all of my furniture in my apartment just to make rent. So I thought that I may not make it in this business, right? And I was going to have to shut down, close my offices, go back to that property manager and say, hey, sorry, your estimation was right. But man, like right when I got on the verge of like not being able to pay my rent, boom, one of my deals closed. I call my brother and because he was the one who was cutting the checks because he was like the owner of the brokerage. And I was like, well, how much was it? Because I had no idea how much you make from these things. And he's like, you know what? It's depositing your bank account. Just go to the bank. And there was no online banking at this time.
Right. That's like really go to the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you call.
Or the ATM machine because they tell you a balance. And I remember I went to the ATM machine and I was like, could I withdraw $20? Is it going to bounce? Like, what's going to happen, right? I would draw $20.
And you get the receipt?
And I get the receipt. And my bank balance was like $37,000 or something.
Hey, do you get the receipt and do like this?
I'm rich. I was like, man, can I pull out a little more money?
I knew I should have got $40 off. So that right there, that's when you realize like, okay, there's success here.
Yeah.
Is that a gift and a curse though?
It is because I was too young to fully understand. And I thought, hey, you know what? If I can make this kind of money at this young age, I can't miss.
Right.
And especially foreshadowing what I said earlier, the real estate bubble was about to hit and I didn't anticipate that. So by the time I was 21, I had multiple offices. I'm doing so well now in real estate that I decided to drop out of school. So I'm doing this full time.
How your parents feel about you're dropping out?
I didn't tell them at the time. They weren't paying my tuition. I was paying my own.
Got it.
So they didn't know until the Student Aggie, which was like the local newspaper, run a front page story on my brokerage, like talking about how successful it was. And then they had someone text them, or not text them a photo, but like send them a newspaper. And it talked about how I dropped out. And so that's really
how they had to find
tough
out.
for them. Yeah, because my parents were saying, if you don't get a degree, that not only will you never be successful, but also no one will ever marry you. Like that is how much pressure they put.
Did they ever hit you with that's why we came here?
They would just show up randomly to my apartment quite often.
Right, but they didn't do that's why we came to America.
Man, they use every reason under the sun that you could imagine, right? So they tried very hard to get me back to school, but once you get a taste of making money, it's very hard to go back.
Yeah, and then I'm going to school to make this. Of course you want the piece of paper, those kind of things, but my really kind of the end goal we're thinking about is profession and how do I make money? How do I survive?
Exactly.
So if you're already making that, it's hard to tell somebody put that down and go back over here.
But at that time, I was still, I talked earlier about sort of not following the path, right? Like ultimately I started to become this black sheep of the family as time went on, because here I am like dropping out of school. I'm dating girls, which my parents found out because, again, they would just show up at my apartment and like I had my girlfriend over and they'd be banging on the door and I try to like sneak her out the window from the backside. And then I didn't know that my dad was the one banging and my mom was waiting behind the apartment.
Oh my God.
And so you can imagine
the whole place is surrounded.
Yeah. My mom found out who the girl was and called her dad.
Oh my.
And yeah, it was really bad. So, you know, I was still in this place of like trying to be Indian enough to make my parents happy, trying to be American enough to, right? So I did listen and I decided like, all right, mom and dad, like I will go back to school. I will complete my degree, because I was like 70% there as it was. So I had missed my junior year of college because I dropped out, but my senior year, in 1 year, I had taken twice the amount of credits. I actually had to go to the dean and say, can you make an exception, because they cap you out on how many credits you can take. So they made an exception for me. I did 2 years of schooling in 1 year and I still got my degree. But at that time, like I had, you know, I wasn't responsible with money. I realized that I had my brother somewhat as a mentor, and he told me like, hey, before you start spending too much, you should do some investments. So I bought my 2 first investment properties at 20 years old. And then on my 21st birthday, I bought an orange Lamborghini. And yeah, I financed a lot of it at that time. Again, like
orange too.
And orange. I mean, because you gotta remember, my mindset at that time was the more I could show that I am a person of success, the more people that would be interested in being friends with me. And so, you know, I didn't have the right mentality. I was leading with the wrong thing, and I was prioritizing making money over anything else. And these were lessons that, you know, I had to learn the hard way throughout my 20s that later came back to bite me. But ultimately, it helped shape the person that I am today, because now, like going back to how when I started Dhar Mann Studios, it was the first time I had ever started something without the goal of making money. I started it with only the goal of the mission, which was to help people. And so that ended up becoming the most successful thing that I've ever done. So intention really matters.
Because everything else was the money chase.
And so it was easy come, easy go. It was like these short-term highs. Anything that you're chasing with the wrong intention will never last, whether that's a business, an income stream, shortcuts to your health, a relationship, right? Anytime, like I use this example that, would you rather, if there was a bridge that I told you I built in 3 months, or there was a bridge that was built in 30 years, which one would you feel more safer crossing?
30
right?
years.
Exactly. The one that was built in 3 months is probably made out of popsicle sticks and will just fall apart. And so that's why, you know, I now look at long-term legacy and success and impact when I make any decision. But back then, I'd got myself so deep into debt with these cars and this expensive lifestyle that when the real estate crash did happen in 2008, I suddenly found myself without income. And I ultimately had to sell everything. Yeah, that was the first time in my life that I had lost everything.
Does that send you back to your parents' house? Or you still had it kind of, you could float a little bit?
So at that time, I still had.
Because you had property too, right?
I had property, but you know, at that time, I kept the property, but it wasn't, because the real estate values crashed, right? And so now I was underwater on those properties. So if I did have rental income, it might be enough to pay the mortgage at best. It wasn't like I could live off this rental income. And so even though I was facing financial hardship, I was still always trying to come up with quick ways to make money.
And looking the part still too?
And so what I did was I took the cars that I had and I started an exotic car rental company.
This guy's a genius. Jesus, bro.
Yeah.
Use what you got to get what you want. Huh?
Exactly. And so, you know, that way I could still maintain the facade of I'm a guy with nice cars, but the only way I'm able to maintain that is by renting them out whenever I could.
Is that successful?
You know, it's successful in terms of making money, right? But it's not like it's something that I'm really proud of, or I can say I made some positive difference in the world, right?
But were you looking for that at that time?
I wasn't. I was just looking at whatever I could do to make money.
Right.
And so I was running the real estate. I was running the exotic car rental business. And then I did move home, and my parents were into real estate at that time. So I also got into property management. And as I was managing a lot of property in Oakland, one day I get one of my tenants come to me, and they're like, Dhar, we had a break-in at one of our properties. And I was like, oh my gosh, I start picking up the phone. I was like, let's call the police. And then he hits the little dot, like the
hang up.
Yeah, the little hang up button. He goes, no, we can't call the police.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? If you had a break-in, why would we not call the police? And he's like, well, remember when I was applying to rent this building, I told you it was a cooking facility? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, we weren't exactly cooking what I told you. We were cooking something else. And it basically was a cannabis grow facility that was also making edibles. And so I didn't know that. And at this time, now this is, 2000 and, gosh, what year was this now? This was like 2008 or so. And so at this time, there wasn't a lot of awareness around cannabis laws. I didn't know that medical marijuana was like legal in California. And so the first instinct I had was like, I have to call my lawyer now, and we're going to have to start an eviction process. And he's like, no, I have all my paperwork. I'm doing everything legitimately. I'm like, you're telling me that you can legitimately grow like weed in California? Like, there's absolutely no way. I didn't believe him. So we actually filed for an eviction, and right before the actual lawsuit, right before we went in front of a judge, my attorney comes up to me and he goes, Dhar, I've reviewed all their paperwork, and they are in fact in compliance. And if you move forward, you're most likely to lose.
Wow.
And so I'm like, you're telling me that you can grow medical marijuana legally in this state?
Oh, man. Did you get this?
Yeah.
What?
So at that point, this light bulb went out.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then again, me being in a completely different mindset that I was in back then, all I was thinking about is, what is my next way of making money?
Yeah.
And so I end up doing everything I can to now learn about this new industry. I was always switching industries. I was always taking on new jobs. Like, my life was always starting over in a sense. And so I ended up starting businesses around the medical marijuana space. And for a short time, that was also successful.
Really?
Yeah.
You say for a short time?
For a short time. I mean, do you want me to continue with the story? I'm not sure. Yeah. So, all right, there's two things that happened simultaneously that really took me to the lowest point in my life. So, when I told you that I was in real estate, property management, when I went back home, I found out about this government grant program where you could apply to beautify some real estate that was in debilitated neighborhoods. So if you were to put up a certain amount of money to improve a property that was in a neighborhood that needed some work, you could get a reimbursement from the government. So I decided, again, being young, dumb, I'm overly ambitious, right? I want to try to move 100 miles per hour at this time. I'm like 22 years old, 23 years old. I decided to apply for multiple of these grants and take on a lot of different real estate projects at once. Now, at the same time comes this cannabis opportunity, right? So then I go into the cannabis industry, and at that time, you have to get a license from the local city in order to have a dispensary or a cultivation center. And those were all limited. They only had a certain amount that they would distribute. So there weren't any available at that time. So I was like, okay, well, what could I do sort of around the cannabis industry? And that's when I decided that, hey, you know what? During the gold rush, who were the successful ones? It was the ones that were selling the picks, pans, and shovels, like the Levi Strauss. So I was like, oh, well, I can open up like a sort of a gardening store that would sell everything you need to successfully grow cannabis. And at that time, like, we've all probably heard of hydroponic stores. If you actually go into a hydroponic store, they have no medical marijuana or cannabis affiliation whatsoever in their stores. And I didn't understand why. And it's because of federal laws and the distributors. They don't want any sort, like the manufacturers of grow lights, they don't want any sort of association with cannabis, even though people know that no one's spending $10,000 like to grow tomatoes.
We don't know what to do with the lights.
Yeah, exactly. So it was this like don't ask, don't tell. And I wanted to start like the first honest hydroponic store that openly talked about medical marijuana cultivation. So, we went all in. We had like a doctor on site that patients could see to receive their certs. We even had classes that you could take on how to successfully grow medical marijuana. We had, we called it like the Green Squad, sort of like how Best Buy has their Geek Squad.
Right.
That would help you actually build cultivation centers. And at this time, my very first interview that I ever did, outside of that local school newspaper one, was CNN Live. Like I had
about the business.
Yeah, about the business. Because during our grand opening, we had senators there. We had like a lot of local big business people, and it became this nationally syndicated, globally syndicated news because there wasn't such a thing as a hydroponic store that openly talked about cannabis cultivation. So we were the first to do it. And, I was such a high, right? That day, like getting all this attention, and we had lines out the door. And then later that day, I get a call from the distributors and said they're cutting me off from all of our distribution so we could no longer buy products to actually sell inside of our store. So just going back to
the story,
everyone saw the story in the industry. Exactly. They didn't want the affiliation. So now my hydroponics business is doomed from the start. I tried everything. I tried buying like products from third parties. I tried everything you could imagine to keep that business afloat. But it was doomed
you're
from
almost
the start.
grand opening, grand closing, damn near.
Exactly. And at the same time, because I had attracted so much attention to myself, now people were just kind of looking into my background a little bit more, going back to those real estate grant applications. What had happened was I had taken on so many projects at once that I ran out of money because I didn't anticipate the actual grant reimbursement process would take over a year to receive that money back. So I thought I would spend the money a month later, I would get a check kind of a thing, right? And I would just keep that going. I didn't realize that it would take like 18 months at times. And now I'm out of pocket on all of these different projects. And so what I realized was, what I thought was, obviously hindsight's 2020, and this was like a big mistake on my part. But at this time, I was chasing all the wrong things. I was chasing fast success. I had the wrong mentality. I would backdate. I would put an earlier date on my application for when I would finish the project.
So you can get the check quicker.
So I can get the process started quicker.
Gotcha.
I still completed all of the projects. I paid all of the contractors, but I was just trying to get the reimbursement a little bit faster. So during, this time where I'm creating this high profile, people are sort of looking into me more. Somebody in the government's office like catches that, and now not only am I facing all these financial challenges on real estate and on the verge of closing my cannabis company, now I get hit with criminal charges.
Man, you're the CNN guy, and they see it.
Exactly. And all of that attention that I thought was good attention. As I'm sure you've seen it, like just as easy as it can come, where you can get, you're loved by people, you can very quickly be hated. And that was, again, I was like 23 years old at the time, right? Now, all of a sudden, this is my first time dealing with being in the spotlight under all this scrutiny, all the people in my life that I thought were my friends, because again, they were there for the wrong reasons, right? Because that, again, it was my fault. I was attracting these people as to, look how successful I am. I'm on TV. I'm this person. You should be friends with me. Everybody left my corner. I suddenly found myself all by myself. Mm-hmm. Even, going back to being the black sheep, right? Now everybody in the Indian community is like, do you see what happens if you don't follow the path.
Oh, so you're
if you
that guy
I'm
now.
that guy. I'm the guy who's the example of how you can throw your life away, right? If you don't
Is
follow.
there any I told you so's?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about because everybody's parenting style is different. And, I learned a lot of my bad habits in business because of my parents. I mean, I'm very thankful for everything. Again, everything that happens in my life, I see as a blessing because I always take away some valuable lessons from that. But, my parents just took shortcuts in business, and I sort of learned that from an early age and started to normalize that. But when I was at my lowest moment, it wasn't a situation where, I got the love and support and, hey, you know what, everything's going to work out.
So you were were you solo? Like, was it dark?
I was solo. Yeah.
When you're in something, when you look back at things, the windshield is always beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're present or when you're looking through the actual, the rearview mirror is always beautiful.
Yeah.
But when you're looking through the windshield,
right,
that had to look dark. And it's in actual real time.
Put it this way, there was so much egg on the windshield I couldn't see 1 inch in front of me. I had my brother. Mm-hmm. My brother's always been like my anchor in life. He's always been there for me, like during my tough times, because we had the same upbringing. We went through the same things together. And going back to like when he would be getting bullied and beat up, I would always come to his defense. Even though I was the younger brother, I was like born bigger. I was like the tallest, the heaviest. And my brother, he was like he was premature. So he was always like the scrawnier, smaller kid. So I'd always come to his defense. And this is like the time that he came to my corner. Mm-hmm. And at that time, like all I could do was go for walks. I would just walk all day long because I couldn't think, like my mind was just, I truly felt like my life was over.
Yeah. And nowhere to go either, huh?
Yeah. I didn't see any sort of future in sight.
How dark did it get? Like, do you contemplate even hurting yourself at that time? Because sometimes you can't look. I always tell people, I say, man, don't do a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Those words are very easy to say, but when the dark is dark,
right,
you get into some of the worst case scenarios when it comes to thinking as well.
Yeah. Did
you ever get that dark?
I know there's a lot of people that go through those situations, and I want to be very sensitive to that. And, I want to be honest that is not where my mind went, but where my mind did go is what would be written on my tombstone when I die. Mm-hmm. And I thought that the only thing I would ever be known for was a failure.
Was that? And
I thought that on my tombstone would be written like, here lies Dhar Mann, a complete failure. Like that's what would go through my mind. And, if you're in the news and you pass and people write about you and the only thing you're ever known for is like a controversy, that's just going to be permanently associated with your name.
Was this on the news?
Oh, yeah, as you can imagine.
And you know what's wild about that, man, is things when we're involved in something, it seems so big. Mm-hmm. But you're not thinking that somebody else still got up and went to work. They're raising their family because you internalize it so much.
Right.
That it becomes everything to you.
Exactly.
But it's not everything to someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at that moment, all eyes, all ears. And then what we play in our head, everybody's talking about me.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at me different.
Exactly.
Everybody's, and our minds, for some reason, go to the worst case scenario. Every time, even with me today, no matter what I have or success, I always go to the worst case scenario.
Right.
And I think that keeps me sharp too.
Yeah.
I think it keeps me sharp. So when you're in that position, we don't think about, of course you want to get out. Of course you want to do certain things, but what's the next step? Because now there's trust, I'm pretty sure. There's a public scrutiny. Is there also self-doubt now too?
Yeah, I thought, everybody in their life wants to be somebody. Mm-hmm. They want to achieve something. Every single person in this room right now, like as you guys think about your life, your childhood, You thought that, hey, I'm gonna change the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something that I'm gonna be proud of.
And it weighs heavier probably on you because you wanted the accolades, you wanted the admiration,
Exactly.
you wanted to be accepted. So
I
that
just
probably
wanted to be
weighed a little bit more on you too.
Exactly. I was already feeling outcasted. Now this was the most extreme version of that. And so, at that time, what can you do when you're at the lowest point in your life? The only thing you can do is take one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you just strive to be 1% better every single day, it might seem like you're hardly making any progress, like you're stuck in the mud for so long and you're not climbing out. But if you just stick to taking one step forward and improving your life every single day, you'll be amazed as to how far your life can come.
And I say that often. I tell my kids too, I'm like, there's absolutely no way that you can jump from the bottom all the way to the top of the stairs.
Right.
But you could put one foot in front of the other,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll turn around and you'll be at the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
You just got to go you got to do the steps.
Exactly.
And when you say that, you had to do the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when some people say one day at a time, it sounds so cliche, but sometimes it's 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like one exhale at a time. And when you're dealing with something so dark, when do you start to see a so-called turnaround?
Yeah. So, it's like that saying, every journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, right? And so at this time, now I've come to the realization that I am the common denominator, that I am the problem. I start taking self-accountability for the first time.
Are you in therapy at that time? Or are you just dealing with yourself? You're talking to yourself?
Like, my therapy became reading books, became meditating, became going for walks, right? Everyone has different ways of processing. But, as the days went by, like, I started having to face these charges that I was on. And, my biggest struggle was that I had no money left. I couldn't pay my attorneys, right? And so I eventually had to sell my cars. So now I'm carless, right? My business is on like the verge of failure for the cannabis company. And then, I'm just really, my whole focus was how do I face these charges? So I spent about a year fighting the case. I win. All the charges get thrown out, right? Because the judge says, okay, well, he paid everybody. All the projects got done.
Right.
This is like a victimless crime.
Right. And it wasn't like any pocketing or...
No.
Right.
Even, I'll get to what the ultimate outcome was in a second, but like, you can... So if you lose a case... if a defendant wins a case, the prosecutor can try again a second time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of that. So then the files got charged again. And now I'm like having to battle this a second time. And this is now, about 18 months into spending every dollar I had on fighting.
Were you
this,
running
right?
up against somebody that was running for office or?
Well, I was a known guy, right? And
so you were the example.
In the city of Oakland, there's a lot of politics there. And again, like, I'm not going to sit here and try to justify as to why maybe I received some harsher, consequences or whatever else because of who I was, because ultimately I'm someone who takes full accountability for myself. And I realized that if I hadn't put myself in that situation, none of this would have happened.
You knew then?
Well, no, before then, I would look at everything bad that happens to me and I would blame it on something else. I would blame it on the real estate economy crashed. My parents sabotaged that relationship and called her that. I would always look at
easy to put the blame somewhere
factor.
else. Yeah.
That was the first time in my life that I realized if I didn't see myself as part of the problem, I would never see myself as the solution.
And you'll keep going back. Yeah, that's powerful.
And that's radical
hard too,
accountability.
Though.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to blame it on your parents, blame it on the system.
Right.
Blame it, and we all got something to blame it on.
Yeah.
I can blame, the black man, the white man keeping me, there's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you say, okay, you know what? it's me.
And I take, full accountability for everything that's happened. And so when the second set of charges got filed after I beat the first set, now we're like 18 months in. I'm spending so much on attorney fees. I'm running out of money. I eventually get in front of a judge. It's like, look, this isn't like a jail time type issue, right? Like if you are willing to plead no contest, you could be on probation for 5 years. And at the end of your probation, you can have all of your charges removed. And I decided to accept that.
Yeah,
I was so tired of fighting. And so I ultimately had to pay a $10,000 restitution. And I completed my probation. And then I, filed a expungement.
Right.
And all my charges got removed from my record. So I no longer, have any.
What is the court of public opinion like, though, at that time?
Oh, at that time, as quick, like at that time, there wasn't the internet as much. And so like today's news becomes, tomorrow's fish paper, kind of a thing. There's that saying, right?
Is the court of public opinion different now? Because now can it be searched on the internet? And
yeah, it's constantly a struggle, right? Like as much as I have tried to move on with my life, and as much as I have done as much like sort of goodwill or positive things in the world, it always sort of goes back to, well, people say he's a felon. I'm not a felon.
Right.
I mean, but he had criminal charges, right? So no matter how good of a person that I try to become today, no matter how much I've spent the past 20 years trying to learn from my mistakes, trying to become better, trying to give back and help communities, make a positive difference in the world, there's always going to be that person out there that says, well, look at what you did.
Right.
You will never be able to be anything else in your life. And ironically,
and that's got to be fine too, because you can't satisfy everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think there's so much the balance of the joy and the things that you do. You're always going to have somebody. And
it just makes you have to try that much harder.
Right.
And I realize that. And it's every few years, if you've ever had like a controversy, it almost comes up again as if it's brand new. Mm. And so, when I got selected as the chief kindness officer by the NFL,
yes, sir,
that all of a sudden became the news was like, oh, the NFL chose somebody that has a criminal past.
No.
And I'm like, well, I am trying to do good deeds in this world and to help people know that, hey, if you fail, if you make mistakes, that people deserve a second chance, that you're not only as great as your worst act in life, that failure is an event, it is not a person, that you can pick yourself back up and rebuild yourself again. And I'm trying to do that in communities, with people, with my life,
and
with
authentically,
my kids.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I tell people too, man, there's a test and there's a testimony. Mm-hmm. You had the test, and the testimony continues. And I didn't even know with the chief kindness officer or the NFL that somebody that became a hiccup once again. But I felt like the things that you did during that time
that you were a part of as well.
Yeah, like the one that we did together, man, for the school, going in, getting them equipment and redoing their weight area in their locker room and everything in one day. And that was Dad's social that did that as well, right? Mm-hmm. Just those kind of things, bro. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. It was an amazing experience. And, one of the things that I still remember that we did as one of our projects while I was a chief kindness officer for the Super Bowl, there was this boy whose dad was sick. And the dad had said, I'm going to take you to the Super Bowl. Like, I promise you that I'm going to take you to the Super Bowl. It's the last thing I do. Mm-hmm. The dad ended up passing away before that happened. And I found out about that story. And this was like a really good kid who did everything right, was such a hard worker, who's a captain of his football team, a great student, was trying to take care of his mom during all of this. I found out about that story, so I reached out to his mom and I said, hey, his dad may not have been able to fulfill that promise or make that dream come true, but I want you to be able to. And so, we showed up and we surprised them with Super Bowl tickets, and the mom was able to take her son and fulfill the promise that the dad wasn't able to keep. So these are the types of things that we did. You know, over the course of 10 days, we teamed up with like different creators, different players from the NFL, different people within the organization to just do acts of kindness like that.
I saw the one with the taco truck as well.
Yeah.
With buying her out and taking care of her with a briefcase full of money. Like, and these are real stories.
Mm-hmm.
Real stories with real people.
Right.
Yeah, man. And it's wild because we don't get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't get a lot of, you know, the knight in shining armor. You know, there were times when we were homeless where, you know, you would sit up and you would pray for something to happen.
Right.
And I think that's why too, Dhar, and it could be a pattern of, you know, therapy that I go through as well. But that's why I really enjoy blessing people.
Right.
You know, off camera too, more than anything, is because sometimes you need that and you never know where it's going to come from and you don't think it's going to come. So when you get Dhar Mann, or when you get other content creators, or you get organizations or companies that show up, people really feel that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the reason why when people say, oh, you know, cup runneth over, I think there's certain people that give a lot because we're the faucet.
Mm-hmm.
And to be the faucet, those are the cups that we help runneth over.
Right.
And you got to be the one that, I think the reason why God blessed me out of the 7 kids, and we're all blessed, health and everything, or, you know, free. But I think God knew, give it to Kurt, because Kurt is going to share it. Mm-hmm. Not that my other family members wouldn't, but it felt like it came to me and I had this responsibility, almost to the point where it keeps me in therapy. But, you know, where you get this responsibility of this is why this happened, because from this, I got to do this. Yeah. You know, I do want to get Dhar Mann on. You're known for content. Mm-hmm. How does the content start?
Yeah, so going back to how I look at everything that happens to me as a blessing, right? Mm-hmm. Even when I feel like it's something wrong. There's a saying that I love that says the depth of your suffering defines the height of your joy. And because I had been to such a low point in my life, I feel like I'm able to experience this new level of joy that I've not been able to experience before, because I know what it's like to feel like your life is over.
Same.
And, you know, one of the early experiences that I had when I was living in downtown LA was that, so now I'm in my 30s, and my wife, Laura, and I, who, you know, you're also friends with, we'd go and we'd feed the homeless every Tuesday. And there was this experience that happened to me where there was this homeless person who had his eyes closed, and I wasn't sure if he was sleeping or what was going on. And I didn't want to invade his space, but I decided to put food in front of him. And as I'm walking away, there's a lot of homeless people around. This business person, like in a suit, comes up to me and he goes, Dhar. Oh, he doesn't know my name. He goes, do you realize how many homeless people there are in downtown LA? He's like, look around you. Do you really think that your work is making any difference? And I started to second guess myself for a second. Maybe this guy's right. Mm-hmm. And then I get approached by that homeless guy who had his eyes closed. And he said, Dhar, he didn't know my name, sorry. He goes, I had my eyes closed because I was praying to God that I did not go to bed hungry. And I opened my eyes and saw this meal there. So I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And he goes off and eats his meal. And I turn to the business guy and I go, it mattered to him. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea was, you may not be able to change the world, but you can change the world for one person. And so there were experiences that happened in my life like that I thought, what a powerful life lesson, that I could tell you a story. I could tell you, hey, Big, you know, keep trying to help people. You never know whose difference you're going to make. You never know how much of a difference you can make for someone. That might resonate. But if I tell you that story, you're always going to remember that story. And so I wanted to tell stories that help teach life lessons where people would be able to share them with each other and say, this is what I was talking about when I said that what happens in the dark always comes to light, that the kindness you put out in the world always comes back to you, that you may not be able to change the world, but you can change the world for one person. These were like very shareable stories that all centered around a moral that were meant to help people that were going through any sort of tough time in life or questioning their path. So a lot of that was derived by my own life experience of failure and making mistakes. And I wanted to put out videos that the younger Dhar could have benefited from.
Had you already been doing videos, like even when you went to the homeless guy that had his eyes closed? Were you doing videos then?
No, I wasn't doing
So
content
you
then.
never did any content. What made you go pick up a camera? What was the early content?
So when I was at my lowest point, going back to how I just started reading books, I started meditating, and that was my form of therapy. I, again, was in the mindset that my life was over. Then I started reading a lot of biographies about successful people in life. And I read stories about how Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team, or Oprah got fired from her job as a reporter, or Walt Disney went bankrupt 100 different times in trying to start Disneyland. And that made me realize that failure is not the opposite of success, that failure is actually a part of success, that every successful person goes through massive failure, sometimes a lot more failure than anyone else. But the difference is that they don't let that stop them. So then I had the motivation as to, hey, you know what? Maybe my life isn't over either. Maybe this is just one chapter in my book where I learned some sort of lesson that I needed to receive to become the person that I needed to be in life. And so as I started getting inspired again, I also, going back to that community feeling of always wanting to have a community, I started thinking about how many people out there are going through some kind of tough time in their life right now. How many people feel like a failure or like their dreams didn't work out? It's a lot of people. So many of us feel sad right now, or depressed, or hurt, or trying to get through something.
There's way more of that
than,
I'm a millionaire, billionaire, I'm successful. There's way more. And not that it's a marketing thing, but you're speaking to way more people.
So there's a whole community of quote unquote failures like me. What if that became my community? And so I realized that there were so many people out there that needed to hear some sort of positive inspiration. Not everybody
but you
was
needed
reading
to hear
books.
it.
I needed to hear
so
it
you
first.
you was really talking to yourself.
I was talking to myself, and that's what we all do whenever we're starting our content journey. Anyone who writes a book is writing a book for themselves, really. And so I started thinking that I wanted to create content that speaks to that person to let them know that they're not alone. And maybe if I talked about my failures, not only could I make people feel less alone, but I could also help people avoid some of the same mistakes that I did in life. So that's when I decided to turn my pain into purpose and my struggles into stories. And so I start talking on camera.
Did you know how to do this?
It took me over, I would say, 1,000 takes for me to actually feel comfortable enough to put out my first video.
Really?
And ironically, I wanted to give up so many times in the process, but my very first video was about not giving up.
I'm a hypocrite. You don't want to give up. I'm giving up. Let me do another take.
Exactly.
And you don't want to give up.
Yeah.
Let me do it again. So you say you probably did 1,000.
1,000 takes
before
I
you put
felt
up that
comfortable
one.
Putting out one. And Laura by my side, God bless her, she just, because you put on a certain voice, right? When you're trying to be on camera, especially in the beginning, you're being a certain character. You want to say everything perfectly. I'd be like clearing my throat and then putting on this robotic, stiff, like perfect persona. And she'd be like, Dhar, just be yourself. And I was like,
It's always our queens, huh?
yeah. And I was like, babe, I don't know how to be myself. I don't know who myself is. I'm still trying to figure out who I am because I've been trying to figure that out my whole life. And so eventually I put out my very first video on my birthday, almost 8 years ago.
And where do you put up that? Where do you put it?
On Facebook. And
so it's on Facebook.
I hadn't thought this all the way through, right? So I didn't realize you need to have like a fan page or whatever else. Like I just put this on my personal Facebook thinking that you could go viral that way. And I was very proud of the video that I put out. By the end of it, I was like, oh, this is going to hit. It's going to go super viral. And it's my birthday, so I'm going to be getting extra love from people. Because, back in the day when it was your birthday, everyone goes on your Facebook wall and says, happy birthday.
You're like, how can I lose?
Exactly. I can't miss. And so I post the video. I refresh. That video doesn't even break like 10 views.
Crickets.
I thought that there was something wrong with the algorithm.
Right. It can't be you.
Exactly. It can't be me.
Like, these numbers can't. I'm not even in double digits yet.
Exactly. So I was trying to figure out how I can get a hold of Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe like he could, maybe I was shadow banned.
We didn't know what shadow ban was, but you knew something was going on.
Everyone was conspiring against me for this one video.
This can't be it.
And, that video did not get any views.
And so what was that first video? What was the content? It's your birthday, and what is that?
It was all about don't give up.
Don't give up.
Right?
All right.
Yeah, that regardless of, look at all these successful people. Like what if Elon Musk, after crashing his first rocket, decided to give up? What if Big Boy, when he got fired from his first job on the radio, decided not to continue doing radio, right? Like, I was trying to give these examples to inspire people that if you're going through some sort of tough time in life, that you should keep going because you never know where life can take you.
Damn. When you only get those few views, do you feel like you're done, or is there a fire in you to do another?
So when I was telling you that I was really struggling to put out my first video, because keep in mind, I'm in my mid-30s, right? And so if you can imagine all the doubt, here's a guy who is like known as being a failure trying to give life advice. Here's a guy who's in his mid-30s when most people start their content creation journey in their late teens or early 20s.
Right.
Here's a guy who's Indian, and you never really see people that look like me on social media, especially during that time or any sort of entertainment. Here's a guy who's the black sheep of the family trying to tell other people how to live their life. You can imagine, I was so afraid of what people were going to say. My very first comment was actually from a quote-unquote friend of mine who said, "Who do you think you are, Tony Robbins?"
Oh, but out of joking love, you probably read it different?
It's one of those things that someone can say something that just kills the steam, and they might be trying to like make a joke out of it, but they don't realize that you're at such a point in your life where you need reasons to be lifted up, not to be put down. And I was at that crossroads, but it goes back to the difference was this time in my life that I didn't do this because I was trying to make money.
Right.
I didn't even know you can make money off of viral content. I did it for the mission. And so as I was debating posting my first video or not, what kept going through my mind is, what if no one watches this, right? What if people make fun of me? What if they think it's cringe? And then I got to the point of realizing that even if one person watches my video and has a better day because of it, then that makes it worthwhile. That I may not be able to change the world, but if I can change the world for that one person, it's worth pursuing.
Do you make the second video immediately, or do you know how to get out of your own way?
I promised myself that every week I was going to release a video. And, that I would say, for anyone that's thinking of starting something or doing something or taking some sort of challenge in life, consistency is key.
Right.
Because consistency beats talent every time.
Hold on. Let me clear the room. Let me get Ani out of here. Let me get Dave and everybody. Jason, don't listen to this part. Consistency. So when you put the first one up, the next week you have your second one?
I have my second one, which also flops. My third one, which also flops. I put out 100 videos before I got one to go viral.
Hey, man, and tell them about, when people say, oh, that was my last, tell them about for real. the video.
For sure. So as I'm posting content every week, I'm also working a day job. I'm also in a relationship. And so, I'm working all day trying to make money. And then at night, I'm trying to make these videos. So I'm neglecting my wife. I'm neglecting my health. I have no social life. I'm pouring everything I possibly can. And even though I'm mission driven, I promised myself I'd be consistent and not give up. That starts to wear on you after a certain point in time. So about 50 videos in, I start telling my wife, I'm like, I want to try to make a positive impact in the world, but maybe videos is not my way to do it. Maybe I'm going to write a book, or maybe there's some other way that I can help people, and this is just not working. Because it's a hard thing to know when you keep going after your dreams, when do you pivot and try something else?
And you had already tried 50 times.
I tried 50 times. And so,
easy.
Yeah. And Laura, again, she's been such an amazing influence in my life. She goes, Dhar, don't give up. She's like, I'm not going to let you give up. This has been your dream to help people. You're finally doing it. Just keep going.
What are your views like around the 50 to 100 videos?
So I still wasn't even breaking 100 views at this time, right? It was getting very few views. But one thing that I did realize, one shift that I made after that was I realized instead of me sort of lecturing, right, or talking, like Laura told me, she's like, don't tell people, show people. So that's when I started realizing instead of giving advice, I should tell stories. So then I start telling stories that have happened to me in my life, or even like fables like that you hear. I don't know, what's like the tortoise and the hare is like a story that we all know. So I would tell that story, and then I would tell a lesson at the end of it. And I noticed once I started storytelling, now my views were going from like 100 views to about 1,000 views. But still, it's not like I was experiencing virality.
Right.
I wasn't, when you're putting out content, you're hoping that you're going to get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of views. That's sort of the dream, right? And so I was pouring so much energy into this. So even as I went back, I followed Laura's advice. I kept creating videos. I still could not break 1,000 views. I still wasn't finding my success, and I was working so hard and pouring everything I had. So I go back to Laura and I say, babe, like, I really tried. You told me to keep going. I did another 50 videos. It still didn't work. Like, I don't think this is for me. She really didn't want to accept that and really try to convince me not to give up. But, just seeing like how adamant I was, I told her that the next video that I was going to post was going to be my last video. And so that night, I used to write my scripts on napkins. I had my brother-in-law visiting. Laura has a friend over. And I'm writing a story on my napkin, and I'm trying to tell a lesson around infidelity. And, I teach relatable life lessons, and a lot of people have experienced infidelity in life. And so I was trying to deliver a message about how infidelity can start with seemingly innocent acts. It could be as innocent as a guy scrolling Facebook while his wife is cooking him dinner in the kitchen. Her back is turned towards him, and he comes across his ex-girlfriend's post, and he's debating if he should like it or not.
Right.
That one small action could then start to snowball and become, they start messaging each other. They plan meeting up for a coffee. So as I'm writing this story, I happen to look over, and my brother-in-law was in the kitchen scrolling Facebook on his phone while my wife's friend was cooking something and had her back turned towards him. Exactly what I was writing on the napkin, I was visually seeing happen inside of my kitchen. And that became this serendipitous moment. It's almost like God's calling, where that, you're being put in this situation for a reason. And so, because keep in mind, all my content was just me talking to camera up until now. There was no one else in my videos. So I go up to my brother-in-law and my wife's friend, and I said, hey, would you guys be in a video? And they go, yeah, sure. What do we have to do? And I said, nothing. just do exactly what you're doing right now. In hindsight, I probably should have told my brother-in-law that I was going to portray him as a cheater. But, you know, I didn't think that that video was going to get any views or anyone was going to see it anyway. So I stand next to him and, you know, he's scrolling his phone on Facebook. She's my wife's friend's cooking in the kitchen. I'm like, narrating this whole story about this husband who's liking his ex-girlfriend's post and it ultimately leads to cheating. My brother-in-law is like looking at the side like, wait, what? Like,
thank God nobody watches this.
Yeah, exactly. We record that video. I go to bed.
This is the last video.
Yeah. I go to bed that night and you can schedule your content to go live in the morning, right? So shot it, edited it, scheduled it to go live at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I wake up to Laura shaking me. And I'm like, babe, like, what's going on? She's like, Dhar, wake up, wake up. And, you know, I'm still like, my eyes are blurry. I'm like trying to see straight. And she goes, that video that you posted, it's going viral. And by the time I saw it, it was my very first video to break over 1 million views. And so it went on to get over 100 million views. But the crazy part is the very last video that I ever planned on posting was the video that went viral. And the only thing I can think about that keeps me up at night now is what if I had given up one video before then?
Yeah, man.
And, you know, what I've realized is that you never know how close you are to success. Mm-hmm. You could be one phone call, one door, one video away from being able to achieve all of your dreams, and you won't know unless you keep going.
You ever seen that diamond mine video?
We have a video on that too.
Yeah, he's crashing through the wall, and right when he give up, you can see that he had this one more strike.
Exactly.
Would have got him to the diamonds.
Exactly.
So when you see that starts to go viral, now is that a number chase for you now? Because you hit 100 million. And it's hard to do that again. Mm-hmm. But what keeps you going where it's like, okay, I think I got something here?
So my second video, and this is where it really hit home for me, because, again, this is all about the community. I'm trying to build the mission, the impact, right? So it's not like I made any money off that video. Right. I wasn't eligible for monetization or anything. I didn't think that you could ever make money off of content. But now I'm like, oh, great. Like, it's resonating. That's what excited me. So I started thinking about what was my next video going to be. And I try to think of underserved communities or people that often don't get a lot of representation in media. And so I was thinking about all of the stay-at-home moms that don't get enough credit for how hard they work. So I came up with this storyline about there's this mom that wakes up in the morning. She has a to-do list of all these things that she's got to get done. She gets her kid ready. She makes lunch for him, makes breakfast, drops the kid off, cleans the whole house, goes grocery shopping, cooks, does laundry, everything that she does. And then her last thing on the to-do list is to make her husband's favorite meal when he comes home from work. As she's cooking dinner, the kid comes in and makes a mess in the whole apartment again that she had just cleaned up. But the husband walks in right after the mess is made, and the wife is like just finishing plating the meal. And she goes, honey, so excited you're home. I just made you your favorite meal. The husband looks around and he's clearly perturbed about something. And she goes, what's wrong? And he goes, what did you do all day? Nothing. She's so hurt. She has this notebook that has her to-do list on it. She throws it in the trash and walks away in tears. The husband's frustrated. He goes, what did she just throw away in the trash? He goes to the trash and then he sees her to-do list, and it's all the things that she did. And the very last thing was spend time with the person I love. That's all she was looking forward to in her busy day. And he just completely made her feel not seen for all of the hard work she did. That video was my second video. It went on to get 250 million views.
God.
And the best part about it was the comments there were so many moms that said, I had never felt seen or like my work mattered or like my work was appreciated until I saw this. And there were so many husbands that were commenting saying, I am bringing my wife flowers after work today and telling her how much I appreciate her because I didn't realize how much work goes into being a stay-at-home mom. So that was the most exciting part for me because I realized that content has the ability to actually inspire action and real world change. There were so many wives out there that were feeling appreciated and so many husbands that were showing their appreciation because of this one video that they saw. So that was the most exciting part early on about this mission of helping people, of trying to spread positivity and make the world a better place is actually working.
And you were doing, at the time, you were doing this all out of your apartment?
Yeah. For the next few years, I continued to do it outside of my apartment. And
were you still working during the day?
Yeah, I was running a cosmetics business with my wife during the daytime. I'm like, I don't want to interrupt this interview, but I could actually show you like a little video of how crazy it was.
100%.
Or I could send it to you guys after. But, you know, I was living in a small apartment, so every nook and cranny was like being used. So during the day, you know, we'd have people that were doing shoots for the makeup products. We had the whole fulfillment center. I mean, it wasn't much bigger than this studio that we're in right now. And I had a roommate.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So during the day, we would, you know, be shooting content for the makeup company, be packaging and shipping out products. And then at night, we'd clear all the stuff out and put it in our bedroom while we shot videos. And so my bed was the patient room in the hospital. My dining room table was the restaurant. Every nook and cranny of like our little apartment was used as some sort of film set. And then, you know, from there, it became stressful, as you can imagine, like when if anyone who's ever run like a business out of your home and it has a lot of employees and you're in a tight space, it's like, you know, my wife would go to use the restroom. The toilet seat was always up,
yeah.
And then you'd open like the fridge, your lunch that you're planning on eating, someone else ate, right? It was just a lot of little challenges like that would happen. And also I wanted to be a little bit more ambitious with the types of stories we would tell. And so that's when I wanted to start renting sets, but COVID hit and suddenly everything locked down and you could no longer run film sets. So I had to face the decision whether I was going to continue shooting in our apartment or really take a bet on myself, because I had only been a few months into this journey, right? Or like not very long of experiencing virality. Did I want to lease a commercial building and take a chance, because commercial buildings are very expensive and they have longer lease terms than residential. So I was at that crossroads.
And you stepped out on faith, even if you can't see the whole staircase?
Yeah. There was this gym that was going out of business and they were willing to sublease the space. And so I thought that maybe if I took a small portion of the space and like subleased out the remaining building to other businesses and just kept a little portion for myself, maybe I could make rent. We got the space. I looked at like I hired a set builder because I never had built sets before. I didn't know what they cost. And, you know, I asked like, hey, what are the, 10, 12 sets we can build in this space? He sends me a list.
Oh, Lord.
And the prices, and I'm like, oh yeah, we can't build.
You're like, we got to go back to the apartment.
Yeah, I was like, we can build 4. So that time it was a low-income apartment, a high-income apartment, a hospital, and a classroom. And during construction, during our second set, we were building the apartment. We actually ran out of money, and so we had to pull the furniture from our apartment and use it for the set. Yeah, so this is the second time in my career I was using furniture, rather selling it or repurposing it.
Hey man, when do you go? Is this on Facebook or are you now on YouTube as well?
So at this point, it's all on Facebook because, again, like different platforms have different demographics, and the types of content I was putting out on Facebook, like for the stay-at-home moms or, helping homeless people. They were catered a little bit more towards adults.
Right.
But because I had this classroom set, I now had to start using that classroom set. And so I began writing stories that were based in school. And as soon as I did that, I was like, oh man, no adults are ever going to watch school-based stories. And I was right that all those videos flopped on Facebook. But then my person that was in charge of social, that was posting my videos on Facebook and YouTube was like, hey, Dhar, that video flopped on Facebook, but it's ranking #1 on YouTube. And at that time I was like, who cares about YouTube? I was so unaware as to how big of an opportunity YouTube was. Again, this was 8 years ago. YouTube isn't what it is today. And I wasn't very savvy on social media. And so as I write more and more school-based stories, he goes, Dhar, the new video is ranking #1. It's ranking #1. It's ranking #1. So within the 12 months of me having that school set and writing stories that catered to a younger audience, because the light bulb went off, oh, young people exist. Young people are who watch YouTube. So I started writing content that catered to them. We went from, again, not even breaking 1,000 views on any of my first videos that were going super viral on Facebook to becoming the second most viewed creator by our next year on YouTube, as chosen by YouTube, because they actually published their rankings.
How many subscribers you have now?
Now I have 28 million on YouTube, and we have about 170 million followers across all platforms.
Can you go anywhere, Dhar?
I can go far more places than you do. I will say that because I've been with you, and man, it's a mob.
Man, is it wild how when we go somewhere, the audience splits sometimes too? It's some that'd be like, oh man, Big and Dhar, and then there's some that'd be all Big, and then there's some that's all Dhar. You know what I'm saying? But I feel we've got to wrap up with you.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's so much more amazing work coming out of you. And I also see now that you're finally going to do the podcast your way.
Yeah.
And what is this podcast that we have now?
Yeah. So, my podcast is called What Happens Next.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason for that name just kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, how every person in their life experiences lots of failure, lots of struggles, lots of hardship. But what matters most is what happens next.
Yes.
Because bad moments can either define you or they can help build you. And so with this podcast, I'm sitting down with people that have incredible stories, such as yourself, that have experienced great success, but we're focusing on all the breakdowns that they had before the breakthroughs.
What happens next?
Yeah.
And is this available now, and how do we get it?
It's available May 18th, and it's available on all platforms wherever you can watch a podcast. And I hope to have you as a guest.
You will. Is this something kind of new for you, though? Because I know you and Jay Shetty, you've sat down before, but this direction, is this a new thing for Dhar, man?
Yeah, I've always told scripted stories that were inspired by my real life, but now it's nice that I get to sit down with real people and get to tell real stories.
And have real conversations.
And it hits different. Once you know that a story you're hearing is something that really happened, I think it just gives you that next level of inspiration, that if this person has gone through all these hardships in life, just like I have, for anyone that's made it to the end of this podcast that listened to this whole thing, I'm just a guy who experienced failure after failure after failure and eventually turned that failure into success. And if I can do it, there's no reason that anyone else can't.
What happens next? Is it series or how often are you dropping? It is a series I'll do eight shows, and then I'll shut down, then I'll come back, do 8. What's the rollout?
No, it's just always on. Every single week we roll out a new episode.
How many did you shoot already?
We got 14.
See, that's the way you get it. You lock in and you do it first.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I do want to ask you just some quick one-offs, real quick, man, while I have you here. What advice do you have for people trying to get into YouTube and actually monetize in 2026? And these will be quick.
Yeah. So there's 5 steps, and I'll make these quick, but there's 5 things for anyone looking to build a successful career in YouTube that if you follow, you will be successful. And I call this formula HEART, H-E-A-R-T. Number 1 is H, honor your story. We all have some sort of unique story. Bring that into your content, because even though there's millions of creators out there, there's only one you.
Yes,
so find your way to tell your unique story. And that leads us to 2, E, earn your audience's trust. Your audience is there because of that authentic story that you're telling, and you need to tell stories that make them feel seen, make them feel heard. And as you start to experience success, never forget what got you there in the first place. So always stay true to that mission and your audience. 3 is A, and that's architect your company. And I know that a lot of people think about, how can I create a viral piece of content? I say, think about how you can create a viral company. I'm sorry, I think of it as, how can you create a company that produces viral content? And so that way you don't just have a moment, you can actually have a real sustainable career. R is reach hearts. If you can connect with people emotionally, that's what's ultimately going to move them to want to share your content, engage with your content. And that's the reason for our success, because our content makes people feel something. Everyone thinks of retention curves. Retention is just emotional connection. That's all it is. And T is turn views into impact. It's great to go viral, but if you can do something positive with your message, just like how many people you help out there in the world, Big, it's truly inspiring. If anyone out there is able to become successful at content, which is such a blessing, find a way to actually help the world with your message.
Dhar Mann, how does someone with literally no followers and no budget really kick off and start growing?
I would say lean into your passion. I mean, we're at a point now where you don't need money to get started. When I was starting out, again, I was completely broke, just talking to camera, sharing my story. At that time, consistency is more important than ever. But you know, we're now in an age where platforms don't give you viewership and distribution based on how many followers you have. Anyone can go viral at any time. We're now in a content-based virality system where it's all based on how great your message is. And you see people all the time that you've never heard of or never seen of start to go crazy viral on TikTok. So now is an easier time than ever. You just got to post that first video.
Yeah.
And
get out your own way.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
What's the one habit or system that help you stay consistent? And when I'm talking about consistent, with posting videos, with creating new stories, like what is that in you that you could tell somebody else, this is what I feel you should do?
You know, I've been through so many low times in my life where I questioned, you know, my ability to move forward. And what I'll say to that person, don't underestimate God's ability to change your life in an instant. God's plan for our life is so much bigger than our own. And a lot of the times we just have to get out of our own way.
Man.
How many of us are stuck in that bad relationship or that bad job or the bad company, the bad habits, the bad thoughts? If we just let God help us let go of these things, because you can't grab on to tomorrow's blessings if you're still holding on to today's burdens. So a lot of time it's just letting go.
Let go, let God. Dhar, I want to thank you for coming into the neighborhood and hanging out with us, man.
This was so fun,
I had so much.
I
was about to do a whole seminar with you. But, man, I really want to thank you for your time, man. Time is so precious, bro. And you answer the call, you answer the text, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we need what you're doing even more so with where the world is at. You know, it's a lot out there, bro.
Yeah.
And so by choice, if we can choose to go and check out great content and know that we're not going to get an okie doke, we're not going to get something that's not Dhar Mann Studios like, and I trust my kids to watch, especially when my daughter was young, I trusted that. I didn't have to say what you're watching. She say Dhar Mann, and I say turn that off. You know, so thank you for your time, bro, and continue to do what you're doing. And I can't wait to see what happens next. What happens next is the new podcast for you, bro. So I would definitely check you out. I appreciate you guys. Yeah.